Welcome back, everyone, to Sip and Talk. Great to have you with us.
Hey there. Good to be back. What are we on now? EP443.
That's the one. So something I've been seeing, like, constantly lately when I'm scrolling short video apps, just endless clips of Chinese people being discriminated against overseas, you know?
Oh, yeah. It's a whole genre now, it seems.
Right. Like someone gets glared at in Japan, or maybe gets kicked out of a restaurant in Korea, or, I don't know, gets a second look from security in Europe.
And the immediate caption is always something like,
"Why is the world targeting Chinese people?" It feels like that's the overwhelming narrative presented in these clips.
But here's the interesting twist, right? You look down in the comments section of those same videos, and you often see this immediate pushback. Things like, hang on, he cut the line, or, but she was littering right there, or, you know, he was filming people up close without asking, which isn't cool there.
Exactly. That's the conflict right there. The video screams discrimination, but the comments often point to, well, maybe just bad behavior.
Which brings us to the big question we want to tackle today in our chat. Is this actual discrimination, like genuine prejudice? Or is it more often a case of someone just being, you know, corrected or called out for doing something inappropriate in that particular place?
It's a really crucial question. And what makes it even more fascinating, I think, is, well, you don't really see people from other countries reacting the same way.
What do you mean?
Like if someone from, say, Brazil gets told off for being too loud in a quiet cafe in Paris, they don't usually whip out their phone, start filming, and immediately declare, "I'm being discriminated against because I'm Brazilian."
That's a fair point. There seems to be a particular enthusiasm, maybe, among some Chinese individuals to document these moments specifically as targeting.
Yeah. Why this specific trend of recording myself being confronted? There's got to be something deeper going on psychologically, right? It's not just feeling slighted.
It hints at something more complex than just, like, personal insecurity, maybe a kind of collective sense of victimhood, one that gets reinforced, possibly even encouraged back home sometimes.
Could be. And let's be real, there's often a commercial angle too, isn't there? The whole traffic secret thing.
Oh, absolutely. Slap a title on a video like "Foreigners looking down on Chinese people," and bam, the clicks just pour in. Guaranteed engagement.
Even if the actual incident was, like you said, someone just being told, "Hey, please don't feed the pigeons here," or "Could you maybe not eat that super pungent tofu on the packed subway?"
Right. The mundane reality gets lost behind the clickbait headline.
Yeah, it's funny, though, because sometimes you do see the opposite. Like, if another Chinese person steps up and says, "Hey, man, maybe don't do that," to a fellow countryman, that actually seems to score points internationally. It shows, okay, it's not everyone. There are people trying to, you know, respect local ways. It shows self-awareness.
Exactly. Because the real embarrassment maybe isn't being corrected in the moment. It's knowing you're doing something wrong or being told it's wrong for that place and then just choosing to keep doing it anyway. Or worse, filming it for outrage points.
So that's what we want to unpack today. This whole Chinese people getting discriminated against the narrative. How much of it is genuine external prejudice, which definitely exists, versus how much might be, well, kind of a self-inflicted fatigue bombing of the world through behavior that just doesn't fly locally?
Let's get into it. It's complicated.
Okay, first things first. Before we dive into the why behind the videos, we absolutely have to acknowledge the baseline reality.
Crucial point. We need to be super clear. Actual real discrimination against Chinese people, and frankly, Asian people more broadly, is a documented fact. It happens. Dismissing that would be completely wrong.
Definitely. We're not talking just feelings or anecdotes here. There's solid research reports from governments and universities.
Right. Surveys consistently show that Chinese students studying overseas, especially in places like the US, Canada, Australia, the UK, they report experiencing discrimination at pretty high rates.
Do we have any hard numbers on that?
We do. For instance, there was a report from 2024 focusing specifically on Chinese students in the U.S. It found that a significant majority, 68%, reported facing discrimination outside the university campus.
Wow, over 2/3.
Yeah, and almost as many, nearly 60%, said they experienced it within the campus environment itself, so it's pervasive.
And these aren't just minor incidents, right? This stuff has real consequences.
Absolutely. There's a proven link between experiencing this kind of prejudice and negative mental health outcomes. Studies, for example, looking at Chinese students in Australia, have clearly shown correlations between higher levels of perceived discrimination and increased rates of anxiety and depression.
It makes sense. Constantly feeling watched, judged, or treated differently. That wears you down. It's stressful.
It's a chronic stressor. And then layered on top of that baseline, you had the huge global spike in anti-Asian hate during the COVID-19 pandemic.
Oh, man. Yeah, that was undeniable and often very specifically targeted.
Exactly. People being verbally abused, called the Chinese virus, being shunned in public, sometimes even physically attacked. That's not subtle. That is blatant, harmful discrimination rooted purely in nationality and perceived origin.
So that experience, that fear, it becomes part of the background radiation for many people when they travel or live abroad.
Precisely. And even in countries that might seem more orderly on the surface, like Japan, there are still vulnerabilities. Human rights groups have documented instances of racial profiling by police there. Now, it might not only target Chinese nationals, but it adds to that context where being visibly foreign can make you subject to more scrutiny or unfair treatment.
Okay, so point taken. Real discrimination exists. It's documented, it has consequences, and it shapes the background anxiety that many people carry. We need to keep that firmly in mind as we move forward.
Exactly. That's the essential foundation before we start dissecting the other layers, the psychology and the social media dynamics that fuel these specific types of victimhood narratives.
All right, so we've established the reality of prejudice. Now let's get into the why. Why this particular pattern of anticipating, filming, and amplifying negative encounters? What's driving that?
Okay, this is where psychology meets social media, and it gets really interesting. A key mechanism is probably confirmation bias.
Right. Break that down for us in this context. How does it work here?
Well, imagine you're a student or a tourist, and you've maybe grown up hearing narratives or just feeling an anxiety that the outside world looks down on your country or is generally hostile towards Chinese people.
Okay, so you arrive with that expectation already in your head.
Exactly. Confirmation bias means you're subconsciously looking for evidence that confirms that pre-existing belief. So any negative or even just neutral interaction can get filtered through that lens.
Give me an example.
Okay, say a shopkeeper is a bit rude, or maybe just busy and doesn't smile. Or maybe a security guard asks you to open your bag again. Instead of thinking, maybe they're having a bad day, or maybe I just look suspicious for some random reason, the thought immediately jumps to,
see? They're treating me like this because I'm Chinese.
Precisely. The internal filter interprets the event to match the expectation. The interaction confirms the bias. Rather than being assessed objectively on its own merits, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Okay, that makes sense. The filter dictates the interpretation.
And this ties into another big concept, collective identity and self-esteem. Notice how quickly these incidents pivot from a personal experience to a national one.
Yeah, it's rarely that person was rude to me. It's instantly they disrespect China.
Right. That shift is psychologically powerful. Suddenly, it's not about you being potentially wrong or just unlucky or having made a social misstep. You're transformed.
Into what? A defender of the nation?
Kind of, yeah. You become a representative standing up against perceived injustice towards your entire group. This generates what some call victim prestige, or the victim's halo.
Victim prestige. Explain that.
By filming the incident, by framing it as persecution, you transform a moment of potential personal embarrassment or weakness into an act of collective strength. You gain status within the group by showing you stood up to the oppressor. You become a minor hero in the narrative of national struggle.
Wow. Okay, so the psychological payoff is significant. But then there's the other engine, the money.
Oh, yeah. The patriotic business aspect is huge. The algorithms on major Chinese platforms like Douyin or Bilibili are basically wired to reward this kind of content.
How so?
Data shows that videos featuring conflict with foreigners, especially those framed around being slighted or pushing back patriotically, get way more engagement. We're talking maybe 3 to 5 times the likes, comments, and shares compared to a regular travel vlog or something.
3 to 5 times. That's massive from an algorithmic perspective. The platform itself is pushing this content.
Exactly, because controversy, especially nationalistic controversy, drives interaction. More interaction means more time on site, more ad views, it feeds the beast.
So it becomes a reliable way to get views, which translates to
money. It creates this insecurity commercialization. Why bother making a thoughtful, nuanced video about your travel experiences that might get, 10,000 views, when you can film one confrontation, frame it as discrimination, and potentially get millions of views?
You should quantify that. What's the actual income potential difference?
It's stark. Think about it. A student from, say, India or Vietnam posts a video about facing discrimination on YouTube. It might get some attention, maybe a few thousand views, maybe 10,000 if it resonates. But a Chinese creator hitting that same theme on a platform like Douyin, where that nationalistic chord is constantly struck.
Millions of views are possible.
Easily. And with that scale, plus the ad revenue models, the potential for brand deals tapping into that patriotic market, estimates suggest a single viral confrontation video could earn anywhere from $500 to $5,000, maybe even more in some cases.
Whoa, okay. That is a serious financial incentive. It's not just reacting anymore, it's potentially seeking out or exaggerating conflict for profit.
It creates a feedback loop. The underlying anxiety exists, the platforms reward amplifying it, the money reinforces the behavior, and the collective narrative gets stronger. Other groups might face discrimination, but they often lack this potent combination of widespread collective anxiety and a dedicated, highly profitable media ecosystem built around monetizing that specific narrative.
A closed loop indeed.
Yeah.
Okay, that really clarifies the forces at play behind the camera.
So we've covered the real prejudice, and we've covered the psychological and commercial drivers for claiming prejudice. Now we need to look squarely at the other side. The evidence that many of these filmed incidents are, well, simply people being called out for breaking rules or ignoring local customs.
Right, the counter-narrative that often pops up in those comment sections we mentioned, where the friction seems less about race and more about just behavior.
Exactly. A lot of these clashes boil down to cultural differences, language barriers sometimes, but often it's just a straightforward lack of following basic public norms that are widely accepted there, even if they're different from back home.
Let's start with the basics. Things like public order and cleanliness.
This comes up all the time in videos, often filmed by frustrated locals or other tourists. Simple stuff, dropping cigarette butts on the street in a city like Singapore where that's a big fine and a major social no-no.
Or things like public urination. I remember seeing a viral case about that.
Yeah, the Singapore subway station incident caused huge local outrage. Or even just being excessively loud in public spaces, trains, quiet neighborhoods where the local tolerance for noise might be much, much lower than in densely packed cities back home. When these norms get repeatedly broken...
Locals get annoyed. And understandably so.
Right. The reaction is primarily about the disruptive behavior, not the person's origin.
And it goes beyond just littering, right? Sometimes it escalates to actual cultural disrespect or even vandalism.
The classic infamous example is still the Luxor Temple graffiti incident in Egypt.
Oh, I remember that. Ding Jinhao.
That's the one. Carving his name into a 3,500-year-old ancient Egyptian relief. When that story broke globally, the condemnation was universal and harsh. But it wasn't anti-Chinese sentiment driving it.
No, it was outrage over defacing a priceless piece of world heritage. The act itself was the problem.
Precisely. The criticism focused squarely on the destructive behavior.
Then there are the everyday rule-breaking things, maybe less dramatic but still causing friction, disregarding local rules and basic courtesy.
This is super common in tourist hotspots. Cutting in line is a huge one, whether it's at an airport check-in in Thailand or queuing for a famous landmark anywhere in the world. It creates immediate resentment from everyone else who waited patiently.
Yeah, line cutting is universally disliked.
Or complaints about behavior in hotels, like that story from a Russian hotel about tour groups wasting enormous amounts of food at the buffet, specifically mentioning taking piles of eggs and then just leaving them uneaten.
Right, that leads to locals or hotel staff labeling the group unruly or wasteful. Again, focused on the action.
And let's talk about those specific cases filmed by witnesses, not the person claiming victimhood. Those really highlight the behavioral root cause.
Like the Nara deer incident in Japan?
Perfect example. Tourist gets filmed actually hitting one of the deer. These deer are semi-sacred, protected, a huge cultural symbol in Nara. Hitting an animal, especially a revered one, in public, that's unambiguous misconduct.
So the negative press wasn't about the tourist's nationality, it was about animal abuse.
Clearly. And think about those Osaka Airbnb horror stories.
Oh, yeah. The videos landlords sometimes post after guests leave.
Exactly. Showing apartments just completely trashed, garbage piled high, unbelievable mess, sometimes actual damage to property. The landlord films it as a warning. It goes viral internationally.
And again, the focus is on the shocking disregard for the rental agreement and basic cleanliness, not the renter's origin.
Right. So here's the crucial mental step, the attribution error that often happens.
Okay, explain that.
The person does something that breaks the local rule, drops a cigarette, cuts the line, makes excessive noise. A local person then corrects them, maybe sternly, maybe angrily, because it's the 10th time they've seen it that day.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of processing this as, okay, I messed up, I broke a rule, and that person is annoyed, the individual, often primed by that confirmation bias we discuss,
jumps to the conclusion, they're angry at me because I'm Chinese.
Exactly. They attribute the negative tone or the correction itself to racial bias rather than to their own preceding action. The behavior created the negative interaction, but they interpret the negative interaction as proof of discrimination.
Which then justifies filming it and labeling it as such. The loop closes.
It's a misattribution of cause. The local reaction is often a direct, functional response to the rule breaking, but it's perceived by the traveler as a dysfunctional, prejudiced attack.
Okay, so we've talked about everyday etiquette, cleanliness, following basic rules. But there's another level of friction, maybe the most intense kind, that seems largely self-inflicted.
Yeah, this one moves beyond just social norms and into the realm of political ideology, specifically the attempt to enforce domestic political viewpoints in international settings, particularly universities.
Right. This isn't about littering anymore. This is about sensitive topics, Taiwan, Tibet, Hong Kong.
Exactly. It often plays out in university classrooms in the US, Europe, Australia, places with strong traditions of academic freedom. It's what some observers call the jumping up in class phenomenon.
Describe that scenario. What actually happens?
Typically, a professor is lecturing, or maybe another student is presenting, and they use a term, show a map, or display a flag like the Republic of China flag for Taiwan that contradicts the official political narrative promoted back home.
Okay. And the reaction is?
Often, a Chinese student in the class will very publicly and sometimes aggressively interrupt. They might literally stand up, shout, and demand the professor or speaker correct their language or imagery, insisting on the state-approved terminology or viewpoint.
And this is driven by that feeling we touched on earlier, that these political positions aren't just opinions, they're seen as absolute truths.
Precisely. From the student's perspective, often reinforced by their education system, the idea that Taiwan is a province, for example, isn't a debatable political stance. It's presented as a fundamental, non-negotiable fact. So they feel a patriotic duty to police this perceived error, to educate the ignorant foreigners.
But how does that land in, say, an American or British university lecture hall?
It lands very, very badly. But crucially, the hostility isn't usually about the content of their political claim itself. People might disagree, but that's normal academic debate. The intense negative reaction is about the method.
The interruption, the demand for correction.
Yes. It's seen as a direct assault on core academic values. Academic freedom, freedom of speech, open inquiry, and respectful dialogue. In these academic cultures, the idea that someone can demand censorship, insist that certain topics or terms are off limits based on a foreign government's political line, that's deeply offensive to the entire educational enterprise.
So it's perceived not as contributing to the discussion, but as trying to shut it down, exporting censorship.
That's exactly how it's often viewed, like trying to impose a political gag order within a space designed for open exploration of ideas. Remember that incident at the London School of Economics, LSE, over a map display?
Vaguely. Tell me more.
A student demanded the university alter an art installation because its depiction of Taiwan didn't align with the PRC's claims. The approach wasn't, here's my counter-argument based on historical evidence. It was an emotional demand for compliance with a specific political dictate.
And the outcome?
Predictably, it created significant backlash. The university and the wider academic community saw it as an attempt to intimidate and censor. Students who engage in this kind of behavior frequently end up being viewed by peers and faculty not as brave patriots, but as disruptive, immature, or even aggressive, unwilling or unable to engage within the established norms of academic debate.
So if a student genuinely wants to argue for a particular viewpoint on Taiwan's status in that international classroom setting, what's the accepted way to do it?
The expectation is rational, evidence-based argument. Present your data, cite historical sources, use logical reasoning. Acknowledge that other viewpoints exist and are allowed to be expressed, even if you strongly disagree with them. Engage with the material critically, not emotionally.
So shouting demands or trying to silence the professor is seen as violating the rules of the game.
Completely. It's seen as trying to replace academic inquiry with political enforcement. The pushback they receive isn't, we hate China. It's, we defend academic freedom and reject attempts at censorship in our classrooms. The conflict stems from that fundamental clash of values regarding speech and inquiry.
It's a really important distinction. Challenging an idea versus demanding its suppression.
Huge difference.
Okay, we've painted a pretty complex picture here. Real discrimination layered with behavioral friction, psychological factors, commercial incentives, even ideological clashes. It sounds kind of bleak. Is there a way out of this negative cycle?
Absolutely. And the encouraging part is because a significant portion of the negative perception is generated by observable behaviors or misunderstandings, the most powerful solution comes from within the group itself.
Meaning?
The power of internal critique and self-correction. When you see a Chinese person stepping up to correct a fellow Chinese person's misconduct abroad, that is incredibly effective soft power.
More effective than, say, a local complaining.
Much more, often, because it instantly shatters that negative stereotype of a monolithic, unthinking group. It demonstrates self-awareness, self-discipline, and a respect for local norms from within. It builds bridges instead of walls.
Can you give examples of this working in practice, like turning a negative situation around?
Definitely. Remember the Nara deer incident we talked about, the guy hitting the deer?
Yeah, that was bad PR.
Right. But afterwards, there was this Chinese student in Tokyo, went by Shaolin, who posted a video on Bilibili basically calling out that bad behavior, saying, this isn't okay, guys. And then, crucially, he organized volunteers to go help clean up around the temples in Nara.
Wow. What was the reaction to that?
Hugely positive. Japanese media, including major outlets like NHK, covered his actions favorably. It showed accountability, remorse, and a desire to make amends. That one act did a lot to counteract the negative image from the original incident.
That's powerful. Any other examples?
There was the Thai airport tour guide, G. A video went viral showing him very publicly and loudly telling off members of his own tour group for trying to cut the line at the airport. He was basically enforcing the local rules on his own people.
How did that go down locally?
The Thais loved it. He got praise online, even official recognition from the airport authorities. It signaled a respect for their system and a willingness to integrate rather than impose.
So these individual acts of self-correction have a disproportionately positive impact.
The data backs this up strongly. Surveys, like some done by the Japan Tourism Bureau, have actually measured this. They found that when Japanese people see reports or videos of Chinese tourists engaging in self-correction or internal criticism, positive sentiment towards Chinese tourists jumps by over 40%.
40%. That's enormous.
It is. It shows that these positive actions far outweigh the damage from isolated negative incidents in shaping overall perception. People respond incredibly well to seeing that internal accountability.
So the takeaway is, don't just demand respect, earn it.
Pretty much. It's about shifting the mindset from constantly testing the boundaries or feeling aggrieved towards actively building trust through respectful behavior and, when necessary, responsible self-policing.
There's a quote related to this, isn't there? Something about respect.
Yeah, the core idea is respect isn't given automatically based on your nationality, it's earned through your behavior.
That sums it up perfectly. True influence, true rise, isn't about loudly proclaiming victimhood.
Yeah.
It's often quieter than maturity to say, I'm sorry, when appropriate, thank you, consistently, and to simply follow the house rules when you're a guest.
That quiet confidence and respect, that's real soft power.
Wow. Okay, so wrapping this up, it's clear this whole Chinese discrimination video phenomenon isn't simple at all.
Not in the slightest. It's this tangled web of, yes, absolutely real and painful experiences of prejudice, mixed with cultural misunderstandings, anxieties, powerful social media algorithms rewarding conflict, and sometimes just plain bad behavior being called out.
The crucial thing, maybe, is developing that critical lens yourself, right? Being able to pause and ask, okay, is this incident truly about prejudice based on identity, or is it a consequence of someone breaking a clear rule or custom?
Exactly. And our goal here at Sip&Talk is always to lay out the different facets, the mechanics, the data points to help you, the listener, navigate these complex issues with more nuance and independent thought. We're exploring the dynamics, not pointing fingers.
Yeah. And maybe a final thought to leave you with, especially thinking about those classroom clashes we discussed. Perhaps one of the most valuable things you gain from spending time genuinely immersed in another culture overseas isn't just the diploma or the job skills. It's internalizing that fundamental truth. What feels like absolute, unquestionable truth in your own universe might just be an irrelevant opinion or simply one perspective among many in someone else's.
Ooh, that's deep. learning to navigate those different universes respectfully.
That's maybe the real mark of being a global citizen.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for tuning in and exploring this tricky topic with us today.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Really appreciate you listening. Make sure you subscribe to Sip and Talk wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss our next conversation.
Hey, quick shout out. If you're looking for some fun stuff, check out our buddy Micky's YouTube channel, Micky to Life. He's always got hilarious memes and cool travel vlogs. Definitely worth a look.
For sure. All right, we'll catch you next time.
Bye for now.